They'll go on tonight, or I guess tomorrow morning, Bill, and then stay on for how long, do you think?
Well, I think tonight is the night when Liu He, I think, is going to have dinner with Ambassador Lighthizer. And I think really the best case scenario is Liu He brings enough of a message of it was a big misunderstanding, or we didn't really mean this, or we'll agree to this, that President Trump and General Secretary Xi Jinping agree to have a conversation and potentially give another bit of time, delay the tariffs or the increase in tariffs for another period of time to close the deal. I think what happened was clearly both sides had gotten increasingly confident with their economic positions, and I think the Chinese, as some of the reporting over the last couple of days has shown, got, I think, overconfident. And the Belt and Road Forum, which they saw as a huge success, I think gave them a bit more a sense that they could push back on the U.S. And, frankly, I think President Trump was right to call their bluff.
Really? That's an interesting notion. And as far as you're concerned, people have said that He has to come here with a mea culpa and say that, okay, you guys are right, and give us more time, and you think that happens and the tariffs don't go on tonight.
I think that's the best case scenario. I'm not saying that's going to happen.
You're not saying it's going to happen. Okay.
I'm saying best case because, frankly, neither side wants these tariffs to be increased, and the markets certainly don't want it. President Trump does care about the markets, and I think that what kind of mea culpa it is, it's certainly not going to be one that's public. It's not going to be one that's going to cause the Chinese to be embarrassed. So I would generally think that the odds of the tariffs increasing at 12:01 Friday morning are greater than the odds of them being delayed. But clearly the Chinese do want to save this deal. And I think on the U.S. side there is, last week both sides had folks who were looking at the logistics of a Trump-Xi meeting sometime in mid-June. So even a week ago at this time, there was a lot more optimism on both sides that this deal was actually going to happen.
So, Bill, being someone, I know that you don't need to venture your opinion necessarily, but was what happened a confirmation that the Chinese really do not want to change some of these practices that maybe most objective people would say are things that need to be changed, and they saw an opening where they could get around these regulations? Do they want to continue to operate in a way where they have an unfair advantage, or do they? I guess, everybody tries to work in their self-interest. Is that what they're trying to do once again? And we were right you got to watch very, very closely so that you don't get
absolutely.
Really? So they would like to get one over on us for the next 10 years as well.
I think it was never realistic to think that the Chinese were going to change their fundamental economic development model as a result of these trade negotiations. I think, Ambassador Lighthizer has frankly been preparing for this for his career. He's the absolute best person the U.S. could have to be negotiating with the Chinese. And he was, I think he's focused on getting the best deal possible, but nobody expects the Chinese to give up their state-driven economic model anytime soon. And so the best case deal was one that maybe changed things on the margins and added some ability to penalize the Chinese when things got a little bit too egregious. I think what the Chinese are trying to do is they're pushing back on even those enforcement mechanisms, as well as trying to make the deal as ambiguous as possible, which frankly they always do. I mean, this kind of last-minute blow-up is not unique to this particular trade negotiation. I think it's basically Chinese negotiating 101. It's actually a whole chapter in their playbook about how to sort of reopen things right before you think you're done.
Really?
So ultimately, what the best case deal is one that's going to be better for the U.S. It's not going to solve the issues. The fundamental issues. And so even if there is some sort of a trade truce here, the longer-term trajectory for the relationship is one of much more friction and competition on trade and other issues.
So it really needs, dragged kicking and screaming into a deal is really, they would, to the very end, they would resist changing some of these practices.
Well, if they change some of these fundamental practices, it basically becomes an existential threat to the control of the Communist Party. So
then they never will, right? So
that's the issue, because ultimately nothing will be allowed to fundamentally threaten the Communist Party. The contradiction, though, of course, is they need to make some reforms and some changes in the economy to continue to deliver the goods and continue to show the economic growth. Right. So the Chinese side is trying to figure out how to thread the needle where they can maintain what they believe they need for party control, while at the same time really ramping up their economic development and moving up to what they call the sort of higher level economic development. It's not going to be easy.
Half measures, but that better than nothing, I guess, for us. That's all we'll ever really get in the end, I guess.
Right, and it's worked for the Chinese for decades.
Yeah.
Muddle through, not collapse.